So today is a great opportunity for us to actually sit with you and go over how we do business, because sometimes government can be a little bureaucratic and sometimes it can be through a process. And what today's goal is to actually educate you as a supplier, contractor, vendor on how to do business with the town. And again, have both of you had prior contracts, done business or anything like that with the government before? So what brings you here today?
Me personally, I just want to learn about the process.
Okay.
I'm curious and kind of just, state of mind where I just want to kind of absorb and learn and see.
Okay. What line of business are you in, if you don't mind me asking?
Right now, I'm an attorney.
Okay. All right. Okay. And how about you?
I currently sell online stuff,
Okay.
but my daughter is a small fleet owner for FedEx,
Right.
and she would like to open up like a shop, coffee shop or something in the town of Davie.
Okay.
Something kind of small to have, something local.
Okay. So again, we're going to kind of cover some variations. And I like to learn about what you do before we get to discussion, so I can kind of, when I'm hitting some key points, kind of point them to you to say, this may be a direction we're going, or have some opportunities that I can focus in on. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and.
I know, because Davie remodeled and has a new, they want to have a whole new look, right, an upgrade. I've been living downtown for 29 years,
Right.
so I kind of watched it.
And that's from the
Right.
that's from the business side of things. That's more from private doing business in the town. This is doing business with the town. So basically, this is really focused at, when we're actually procuring services or anything of that nature. And again, you're saying a coffee shop, but that could be catering services for the town just the same. I don't know what you're opening or whatever, but the town, we do certain services, functions and things like that we have catering for. So again, you gotta think about expanding your mind a little bit.
Oh, definitely.
That's the things that some people don't think about. They think, oh, well, I do this. And today, hopefully we can enlighten you to say, I didn't think about doing that. This may be an opportunity. Right, so we'll talk about that, so,
Okay.
all right?
And is there also some grant money available for things like that, or?
That's a bigger,
Different
there is, and it depends on where you're at. But yes, and again, we'll talk about that. That's a little bit bigger and there's more discussion on that. But depending on where your shop is located, there's some other things that, come from the CRA, right, and the SPDC. They can talk about some of that from their side of things. So as we go through the presentation, we'll get there from that, okay?
Okay.
So, hopefully my clicker's going here. Yep. There we go. All right, so we're gonna go through some of the items here. The town's thresholds, our procurement methods, commodities, commodity notifications, procurement website, local preference ordinance, contracting methodologies, and public procurement fundamentals. Okay, those are the topics that we're going to be talking about as we go through, and also in collaboration with these gentlemen here from the SBDC, and we'll introduce them in a little bit more into the presentation, okay? So again, we have some thresholds, some very basic thresholds. These are how we actually start our procurement process. So if you look there, basically $0 to $5,000, departments are delegated where they can actually go out and pick items that they want to purchase. They might be, they're small dollar, we consider up to $5,000 small purchases. And they can really just go get a quote and basically submit it to our department and we'll process it through. Or they can use their P cards, okay? Pretty simple, very straightforward. It keeps the wheels turning for low dollar purchases. Once we get into that $5,000 and above range, or that 1 penny, we go into what's called an informal process. So my buyers on our team basically will take the information like a specification and they'll put that out through a process that we call the informal threshold or informal quote process, or the ITQ. And we'll advertise that on the town's website. We have other mechanisms on how we advertise. And I'll show you through that process a little bit more on what we're using to push this information out so you, as a supplier, contractor, vendor, can go ahead and see where to get that information and be able to compete on these, okay? Once we get to that category, which is 35,000 and above, which is under 287.017.2, which is a Florida statute, we use these as our guidelines for our public formal process, okay? So a formal process is a sealed bid process. You might have heard that. You might have heard of RFP, IFTB, IFB. Any of those things sound familiar? I'm sure that you've been through the RFQ process as an attorney, or maybe not, because a lot of times attorneys are exempt from the professional services aspect of things, and if you didn't know that, that is something that you should be aware of. And we'll talk about that later too, okay? So these are all the departments we service. So we spend about $36 million through our department. So that's what our typical spend is in a year. So we touch from Band-Aids to buildings, I always tell everybody, and everything in between. So from Parks and Recreation, all the way through, we have a fire department, CRA, Public Works, we have a water utility, all the large features we service with them. So basically when it comes to working with those departments, all their expenditures are going to come through procurement, one way or another. And that's a lot to deal with as far as those types of things. So again, that takes some collaboration and working with departments. And we have some methods that we'll talk about later that are ways that, again, if you have some contracts, if you have ways of doing some of the procurements that we do, again, there's some shortcuts, let's just put it that way. They're done through a competitive process. It's called piggybacking. We'll get to it. Any questions up to this point? Okay. All right. So where do I discover quoting and contracting opportunities? Right? So the town actually has a website. Anybody been to the website?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. It is chock full of information. There is a lot of content on our webpage, and we pride ourselves on that because we want to be as transparent as possible. Okay? So when it comes down to the information that we put out there, we put a lot of content. And that content is available on bid notice board. Okay? So what you'll do is you'll click there, and it will show, the first thing you'll see is all of our current bid notices. There's a little box later on that you click, and it will show you all of our bids, and it'll show you the whole process from beginning to end, including videos of our bid openings, if we have presentations, if we have a pre-bid conference, anything like that, we video those and put them on our page so that it's available to see the process. Like if we do an RFP, we have a review committee meeting. We put that on there so that you can go back and look at that. If you didn't make it to that meeting, we also, a lot of times when we're doing our review process, we're doing it via streaming through WebEx or anything like that. We're trying to have inclusivity as much as possible so that you as a supplier, vendor, contractor will be able to see the process. So again, we pride ourselves in transparency in doing this process. So again, that's our procurement right there, bids and notice board, and so there's a button on our page, it's called Notify Me. All right, so if you've been to the town's website, there's little circles, little buttons that we have. There's one called Notify Me. So that Notify Me one actually gives you features where you can get it by email, you can get it by text, you can get it by different ways. We've also broken it out into categories. So you have building and roadway construction. If that's your mainstream of business, then you'll get all of our building, roadway, and construction. If you only want consumables and equipment, then basically that. So we break it out into some of these so that, again, professional services, that's going to be in your arena when it comes to there. So again, if you want all the professional services, any of those solicitations, then you're going to want to pick this bucket, okay? But you can choose all of it. Now, there's pros and cons to narrowing your field. What are those pros and cons? There might be other things in those solicitations that are here that may not pertain to you directly, but you may have a piece of it, okay? And I'll give you, for example, if most construction, if you're a typical subcontractor and you're doing some construction and you're in here, or even if you're doing carpeting or something of that nature, and we're doing a construction bid, you'd want to look to see if we're bidding something out, and you could be a subcontractor. A lot of times when we have pre-bids or pre-construction meetings, we see 30 people in the room. When we get the bid responses back, we might get 4 or 5. We're like, how come we had 30 people in the room? Well, those subcontractors are sitting in the room looking for the prime contractors to be bidding on the job. And they're going up to them and saying, hey, I know you're gonna bid on this project. Here's my card. I'd like to basically give you a quote. I'd like to work through with you to basically bid on this project. Use me as a sub or let me give me an opportunity. So again, those opportunities are still here for you to find those. So you don't have to be part of the big picture. You could be just part of that picture in general. So again, getting this information and how you look at this is, again, opening your mind as what those opportunities are for you.
Do you like to take mainly the lowest bid? Is that how some of that works? Because
So that's a great question. So
budget,
what?
right?
So the thing is, that's a stigma that most people do not understand from government. They think government low bid. We take the lowest responsible bidder, meaning the fact that we take the company that is qualified, licensed, that can do all the services, and then has the lowest price. If they're, and I use this example all the time for like landscaping. Okay, so landscaping companies, they come in and yeah, anybody, and I don't want to use this as a generality, but anybody says, oh, I can cut lawn, I can cut grass. Well, we have 37 square miles of town, right? And we have all of these right-of-ways and all the thoroughfares and everything like that that have to be cut. But you have to be a qualified company. You have to have the equipment, you have to have the employees, you have to have the payroll to back up to pay those employees. You can't just come in with a trailer and 4 lawnmowers, push mowers, and say, I'm gonna bid on this contract. We are not gonna find you to be responsible. So you're not gonna be able to, you're gonna fail from a contractor side of things, and we're not gonna just take you because you're low bid, and you say, oh, I'm gonna do this and I'll build up my capital fleet out of that. That's not how we work. We look at you as a business as a whole to make sure that you can provide the services for the governmental entity. So when you hear low bid like that, that's not always the case. We look at the whole picture, because when you're gonna pay for what you get, right? Sometimes you get that really cheap price, but they can't sustain it. All we're doing is setting you up for failure and setting ourselves up for failure.
Right, but you asked that on, but I see that some of the bidding, because I already looked into a lot of this where it says the company has to have a certain amount of employees too,
Right,
right?
yeah.
So you know where your quota is gonna be to what you need done.
Right.
You need how many people to serve
Right.
you.
And sometimes it's years of service. We want to make sure that they've been doing it for a while. This is not their first rodeo. This is not their first go-round as far as doing this, because again, we're doing public right-of-ways. We don't want people out in the streets basically not doing what we call MOT, method of traffic and stuff like that, and stepping out into traffic and hurting themselves or their employees or something of that nature. We want to make sure that they've been doing this, they know what they're doing, they've taken the right precautions, and they've been successful in doing that. So again, all of these factors that are taken into consideration before we make a recommendation. So it may not be the lowest bidder, because we'll just basically say they're not responsible. They don't have the equipment, they don't have the experience, they won't be able to perform, and we have to make that judgment call. And it might be enticing because it's a low price, but that low price comes at a price as well.
But what about if a new company starts and they just want a chance with the town to build?
But again,
Then because they don't have a record, they don't get the chance. Because they don't have the good record, even though they could be a good company. It's like hiring a good employee that's worked for somebody else but would like to start their own company, but then they're not getting the opportunity because they don't have the back.
but as a taxpayer, do you want somebody to walk out there and basically be unexperienced at doing something and do it? But again, that's how we look at it from the fact that we do not want to have inexperienced companies doing this the first time, and failure only has to happen one time to be a problem. So we have to make sure, yes, I understand, we take some of those considerations. It depends on if they changed names from another company. There are certain circumstances, those are variables that come out of this, that, if someone comes back and says, well, listen, I had a company and this guy had a company and we had these many years of experience already and we're building this company, we would maybe take that into consideration. I didn't say we would, but we would look at it from that standpoint, from looking, reasonableness. But the fact is that they haven't been established as a company. We don't even know if they can stay as a
They have
company.
no proof of.
Right, so there's no
Right.
proof of performance, there's none of that. So that comes with some of the, yeah, that's hard to get into the game kind of thing like that. I know what you're saying, but from dealing with A, liability, B, your tax dollars, you know, we have to be responsible with that. So, good question, thank you.
Great question.
Yes, it is.
Well, because you want to give everybody an opportunity though. I mean, how about the new businesses that would like, you already answered my question.
But
I got it.
I think his point is, you may be a new business, but if you're old in the game, you can
But then
prove
you're not
yourself.
giving everybody the opportunity, and that's what it's about. It's about helping new business start out.
They have the opportunity, they have the opportunity.
But they haven't, but then you haven't helped them because you wanna help new people that are starting out, but you gotta see a record, but you can't help them because you haven't seen that record.
Again, it depends on, I'm using the
Okay,
landscaping experience as far as the liability, the risk and things of that nature. That's not always the case, but I'm just saying, I use landscaping as from the liability standpoint. But you have to see the picture of what's the risk, what's the liability, and we don't want to take on something that could potentially, again, hurt the public, could hurt themselves, or anything of that nature. It's a dangerous area to be working in. So I just use that as an example, but there may be times where a company comes in and the impact or the liability may not be there. So again, we assess those, but you asked about the low bid perspective of it.
I know,
And
but
I'm just saying that
looking
that's where we were, you know, we kind of diverged a
I know,
little
I
bit,
don't
but
wanna-
no, it's fine. I listen, I want to answer your questions and I think that you have some good questions. So again, this is our, continuing with our website right here. We have a page called Supplier Central. So we put out some information about how to do business with the town, our vendor requirements forms, our purchasing manual, and again, that covers from everything we do. And then, you know, how to fill out your W-9 if it's a fillable, and how to do business with the town. So, actually, it's twice, I think we have it here. So again, we have a survey. You know, we asked for your opinion on how your experience is with doing business with the town. We want to know, because if there are things that are out there that you felt not top of the line, if it wasn't a great experience, we would like to know, or if you had a great experience, we'd like to know just the same. We also put on here our auctions, our upcoming solicitations, which you can't see on this. Well, we have upcoming contractual information. And then we also put on there these classes. So these classes would also be on this as well. Okay. We also use a third party to distribute our solicitations. Currently, we're using DemandStar. DemandStar is a fee for service. It actually costs about $25 for Broward County. It's like $50 for 2 counties and so forth. I think it goes out. It's not a lot of money. It's a cost of doing business, but you can get solicitations from not only just the Town of Davie, Cooper Cities, Sunrise uses it, different agencies use it. So it's something that when we publish a solicitation, it goes out through your email. And when you respond, you have to come back through DemandStar. We only take e-bidding. Okay, we do not take the paper way that, you know, if you've heard in the past or anything that done business with government, the old process of, excuse me, of bringing in a bid package and setting it down, or coming late, driving down the turnpike at, you know, 5 minutes till and hoping there's no traffic jam. Now we do everything electronically. We take it all responses electronically and through DemandStar. Within the next 6 months, this will change. We are going to be going to a company that had purchased DemandStar called Bonfire. And their DemandStar will stay, but we'll be using another product called Bonfire. Bonfire is really pushing a lot of the customers that are on DemandStar to go to Bonfire. There is no cost for you to do with Bonfire. There's a lot of other perks that will show up in my next presentation on when we go to Bonfire that we can actually utilize. So it's a qualitative thing for us, because there's things that you can see and we can see for data that we're looking to enhance their services. So again, yes?
And when did you say that the bonfire will?
Within the next 6 months. We are working on it right now. We went into contract with them and now we're working through the process. So again, we'll be switching over to that platform. And Again, it's still an online process, but again, there's a lot of information for internally for us to do things quicker, faster, more efficient, and cost effective. So again, Demand Star we use right now, and it's us pushing the information. If you're looking from a source, and I'm not disparaging any of these others, you have BidNet, you have some other sources out there like Construction Trade Journal, you have some other information. Those are contractor companies or companies that they're using, that they are scraping that information from the web. Okay, they're taking that information across, and sometimes you have to do some fact checking on that before you get it. We get some calls sometimes that Plantation's building a fire station or something like that, and they're asking where the pre-bid meeting is. And we're like, and it says Town of Davie, but it's really a Plantation project. So sometimes that information can be misconstrued, wrong on there, and we have to go back and tell people. And if they don't show up for those pre-bids, sometimes you don't get to go to those, or you don't get to participate in that process. So these come directly from us, like Bonfire, Demand Star, some of these others. Again, I'm not trying to dissuade you from using them. I'm just saying make sure that content's correct. A lot of times you can go to our websites or go to these sites, and it's us pushing the information out, okay?
But is it all numbers? Is that all you're looking at, is numbers on the screen? Like they're sorting out for you, right? So you hire these companies to look at the numbers and the track records, and then they send the A-OK to you, or
No.
is somebody in the office in Davie actually looking at the numbers?
We look at everything ourselves.
Oh, okay, so
They
it's
don't
not
do,
another company.
all they're doing is pushing the content out to you as far as our bid documents or anything of that nature. We take receipt of everything, we analyze everything, we review everything. All they're doing is giving us a platform to create,
To put it on.
to receive, and then we do all the work behind the scenes on that. So that's all of us. So they don't do anything for a service like that for us. Okay?
But for the people that are actually looking to see what kind of projects you're pushing out, they can get those notices through the email initially without even having an account yet.
Through the notified.
Correct.
Yes.
It's only if they wanna go further and look further, then they have to come in here and see what the process is and what they need to submit.
We have it on our page too. We do have that content right now as a duplicate. Once we go to Bonfire, we'll probably only have it on Bonfire. That's
Okay,
another
but this
thing.
is more for submission purposes.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's absolutely correct. You'll have to submit through this process. All of our solicitations contain the instructions, step by step on how to do this. We also give you the 1-800 number to put in there, so if you have a problem submitting anything, we always make sure that we tell people when they're submitting their documents, don't do it at the last minute. Don't be that turnpike electronically coming down and saying, oh, 5 minutes before it's due, let me stick everything in there. That is a failure point on your part, because if your network is down or something goes wrong, your computer's not acting correctly, and you don't get to do it, it's a heartbreak. And it's a loss for us too. It's a loss for you, it's a loss for us, because it's a lost opportunity. I always like to have a competition as much as possible, and we will not take them late, because that gives somebody an unfair advantage. They basically, we open the door to somebody else, they basically, they had opportunity, everybody had the time. We're not gonna just say, oh, a day later, we might take it. We might have opened that information, we might have read that out. We're not gonna give it late, because they might have heard that information and scribbled it down and said, I'm gonna be the low bidder. So again, there's certain circumstances, and this system doesn't allow you to do that. It locks you out at that point. You can't submit anything late, okay? That's one of the things. We can't see the content beforehand. Once 2 o'clock comes on a Thursday, it opens it up for us, and you can't, on your side, submit anything else. So it's a lockbox type system.
So you can't see what's being submitted as it's being submitted until it's closed?
Yes. Yep. There's no way we can see the content, because it's a lockbox. It's for your
No,
protection.
I understand. I'm just wondering whether or not you're able then to, based on what you're getting submissions, maybe see, oh, maybe I should tweak this because I'm not getting exactly what I'm
You
getting.
can see it, we can't.
No, but I mean, well, you're the one who wants the bid, right?
Yeah, but we don't want that. We want to keep it fair, because again,
No,
if,
it's not for everything, but I'm just saying, if you want to adjust it because perhaps the way that it was posted perhaps is missing some information you're getting.
we can adjust our content,
Right.
but we can't adjust, if you submitted 3 or 4 days beforehand, we don't even know you submitted.
Oh, yeah, okay.
From you as your submission. But from if you had questions in that process and it came out as an addendum, then you would be able to see that. So then we'll talk about some of that stuff in the process as well, okay? So if I'm confusing you, please stop me. Okay, all right. Again, so as we were talking about, basically, you know, as far as active, this is a screen print. So I'm not sure when we did this, but again, talks about, you know, how we've had 128 awarded, we had recommendations of 5, we had 300 evaluation, we have 0 upcoming, and we got 3 active right now. And it gives us, basically, you see that November and December was pretty active in regards to all of our solicitations published at 155 at that point. That's a busy year for us because we go all the way till September. So kind of gives us this little dashboard of how we're doing and what we're doing. And again, they like to say that, you know, they got 270,000 publications out there as well from across the country. So again, this is just a dashboard view of what we get to see on our stuff. With Demand Star, a lot of times they're going to ask you to dial in. Remember I showed you our 4 categories? That doesn't break it out. This gets granular. Okay, so this gets into a little bit better, so you're not getting the whole bucket from, you know, all of these. So if your business is attorneys or it's law, it's anything like that, there'll be a commodity somewhere in the field. Obviously there's a couple other pages with this, but again, you'll see in here like legal practices, professional services, or something of that nature that would be something you would drill into, so you would only get the solicitations for that. Again, you can pick as much as you want. You can pick everything in here, but you're gonna get every solicitation, so you'll be playing Space Invaders with your email for weeks to come afterward. So that's one of the things that, just be careful. And you can always bring these back down, but it's something you want to gauge so that way you don't overload your mailbox. But again, it breaks it down a little bit by categories.
So this is from inside the Demand Star that
Yes.
you're seeking.
This is when you're registering, and this is how we send it out. So when we look to broadcast it out to the field of vendors, we pick from these commodity lines to say, this is where we're gonna focus on sending that out to those field of vendors. It just, you know, if we pick everything, you know, people that are on school library equipment here, they're gonna get a contract for guns and ammo. That's not something they're gonna be wanting, you know, or maybe, I don't know, but I'm just saying, personal products and stuff like that. So again, it just breaks it out by category and makes it a little more simple for you and for us. Okay, so again, online submissions, we talked about that. We do not take the paper process anymore. It goes into this little envelope, and again, it tells us there's 16 days, 5 hours, 40 minutes, 6 seconds left before we can actually even see or open these responses. So again, it's secure, it protects your information, you're the only one that can see it from your side. Once that time moves over, this is passed, now we can see it. And basically you cannot submit anything further. You're done, now we're working on the submission process.
But you can bid for more than one job at a time?
Absolutely, yeah. If we have 5 active ones that are basically that you can compete on, you can compete on all 5 of them. So, all right. So, this is a little toolbox that we built for you as far as, you know, when you're getting ready to start the procurement process, when you're starting, you know, if you're not doing business with government right now, we ask for a lot of generally the same information of everybody, and a lot of other agencies do too. So we're gonna give you a little bit of a toolbox here to say, these are things that start to build like yourself a portfolio electronically or whatever, have it ready, you know, it will make your life a lot easier, you know, in your folder, so that when you get these bid submissions, that content's somewhere available for you to grab it and put it into your submission package, okay? So it's just readily available because you're gonna get asked for this. No matter if it's just the town of Davie, it could be anywhere else. There's a lot of things that we ask for a lot of similar information for, and there's some value adds that we're gonna make some recommendations that you do anyway, just so you put your best foot forward. You know, when you're going for a job application or you're going for, we should do the same thing. You put your best foot forward, sell yourself as well. That doesn't mean that if we're not asking for it, doesn't mean you can't put some information in there. So I'm gonna go through some things. So again, you know, company business profile, brief history and mission statement. You know, again, sometimes if it's a bid, we might not ask for that, but you're telling us something a little bit more about your company, and we talked about that responsive, responsible vendor, right? We talked about that aspect of it. That gives us a clue right off the bat. This is what your mission statement is. This is about how our history of our company. This is how we have a strategic plan, or we have this. That is taking that extra initiative, and that's selling yourself on top of it. Just because it's not asked for, you could put it in there, okay? Company's contact information page, again, we ask for a lot of that sometimes, but again, if not, put it in there. Boilerplate transmittal letter that can be tailored to specific projects. So basically you can give a transmittal letter. Just kind of giving an overview about your company, kind of like you would do on a job resume or anything like that, saying, I'd like to do this. It again shows your professionalism, gives you a little bit of a, a sense of who we're dealing with as a company. Profiles of recent completed projects, again, colored images. That says, pictures say 1,000 words, right? I mean, as far as anybody, most of us are visual learners, most of us see this kind of stuff. Wow, this company can do that. They have the capabilities. Sometimes we'll get landscaping companies that will take a picture of all their trucks and all their equipment and all their guys. And again, it's a bid for something, but they're showing us right up front all those questions. And it's something very simple, and you can use that as your promotional media or whatever, but stick it in there. It's one of those things that it takes immediately out of the question of, what's this company like? I see this, believe it or not, we did a solicitation for metal recycling, okay? And you're like, okay, what do you need to know for metal recycling?
A lot.
Right. But just they took the extra initiative to take pictures of all their trucks, all their equipment, all their crew, and everything like that. And it was like, wow, this company really can do this. They're not just a couple of pickup trucks and basically, they're not taking it somewhere else to recycle it. This is a company that actually does it. They are the ones that are the true recycling plant. And that said a lot, because we didn't know who this company was. We didn't really know their background, but when we realized it, we're like, wow, these guys are really serious about what they do, and they are the main guys that are doing it. If we didn't know that, we would have to go digging through that research, but we saw, again, pictures of people and what they did. Again, pictures say 1,000 words. Your organizational charts, again, knowing how many people we're dealing with from your organization.
Yes.
What does that look like? Are we talking about 1 to 2 and that's it? Or are we talking about, do you have, a strong organizational chart? You might not need one, but again, it just shows what your company organization structure looks like, okay? Resume of key staff as related to the specific project or proposal. Again, resumes, you're telling about them. You're showing us what the competency level of what we're dealing with as far as people. Some of them, it's not that they have to have master's degrees or everything like that. It's just the fact of what's their key experience? What is their background in doing this? Showing that there are people that are actually professionals in what they're doing in your field, or basically it's just, we know that what their competency levels are, okay? So we're dealing with and how we know that. Certificate of insurance, you're gonna always want that, okay? We're gonna ask for that every single time. No question about it. Most governmental agencies are gonna ask for that.
Yes.
A lot of times you'll see that we wanna be additionally insured, and it will say that. However, we don't ask to be additionally insured only from the ones that are the successful bidders. Going to so you can have an insurance certificate, and it may not have that on there, but you can also say, if I'm awarded, I will have the additionally added. Sometimes it's a charge for that. We don't want to have that cost on you just for that aspect of it. So pay attention to the language of the bids. And again, we just want a certificate of insurance showing that you have that coverage. Again, W-9, ID purposes, again, use the current form. Equipment list, we talked about that a little bit. Client references, okay? If you're giving client references, 2 things. Make sure that they know that they're client references, okay? Most of the time, or tell them, hey, listen, you may be getting a call from somebody. If you could, please respond and give them, because we've done that and we've gotten 0 references or anybody responding back or nothing. And we can't gauge that. That's kind of hard. So we have people out there and they're like, we didn't do business with them before, so we checked that stuff. They're like, oh, well, they were a subcontractor and they weren't really contracting with us, but they just threw it on as a reference. And they're like, so again, be sure your client references are sound, because if that's the case, and we start to get, hey, they didn't even know who you were, and then we had to find out that, oh, you were a subcontractor to a subcontractor, they don't know who you were. So again, make sure you're using viable information. And again, subcontractors' information, if you have subcontractors, make sure you're putting that on there so we know that you're using subcontractors. And again, copies of licenses, certificates, if it's required. It's one of those things that we're gonna be asking for, those licensures or anything. If you're, anything like, for example, your bar certification or anything like that, we'd be asking for. All right, some important points, and these things are fatal flaws and failures that we see all the time, okay? And whoever is filling out the documentation, we ask that you go through, double check, triple check, have somebody else look at it if you're doing it. Get a second set of eyes, because that's always the best way. We even do that a lot of times with ourselves when we're public, we're pushing something out. We want to get that second look at it, because a lot of times the intention was there or you thought you did it. Other people can double check your work for you. Fill out all the forms. Make sure you've completed that. Sign all the forms, especially the bid form. Agencies will, and we will too, throw you out for a simple thing of not signing the bid form. Why is that? You're not committing to your solicitation. You're not actually committing to that contract, because that's what it becomes, as part of the contract aspect. And when you don't, it means you're not committed to it. And basically at that point, we're not gonna come back to you, we're not gonna ask you to re-sign it, we're just gonna move on, okay? And again, that's pretty consistent for most agencies. Again, speaking of being consistent, be consistent with what you have as far as your documentation. Use the correct agency's names. Do it, spell it correctly. We've seen where and this is as of the last solicitation we just received. We saw in the documentation, Town of Davie, Town of Davie, Town of Davie, and then page 6, 7, and 8, what do they call it?
Sunrise.
What?
Sunrise Valley.
City of Davie.
Yeah,
And then
City.
you got some other, so again, they've done some word change outs, they've done some replication of things, or they've used other agencies like City of Sunrise thrown in somewhere, because they've used it somewhere else and they didn't check through the whole documentation. So again, go through that, make sure that you're doing some spell checking. Those little things like that make a difference. It shows the level of detail that you're doing. If you're not following that detail at this level, just like when you're basically doing an interview for a job or anything like that, you're giving us the very first impression. And if it says, hey, I'm not paying attention to this stuff, it kind of is the next step to where does that go? Just like showing up for late, it's the next thing. If you're gonna show up late, are you gonna get the job done? Those are very first impressions that mean a lot. So when going back to your question, low bidders, there's key indicators for us all the time that we see that could be an impression piece that starts off that maybe this isn't the company that we want to do business with.
Well, I know if you don't dot your i's and cross your t's, then nobody's gonna even,
Exactly,
Yeah, every-
exactly my point.
even if you put a line in there, I know, because I've already done some work.
No, but that, again, and that's something that you want to double check. So,
But let me ask you this. So in an instance where you have the opposite, where you have somebody who is qualified, who has actually given you a bid that you would consider otherwise, a good bid, a low bid, but because of their nature, they did just that, right? The City of Sunrise in page 7 or 8, would that necessarily then disqualify that specific bid?
No.
Or are you just calling them and saying, hey, listen, do me a favor, next time,
we don't disqualify them for that, because there's minor irregularities and there's major irregularities. I talked about signing your bid form. That's a major irregularity. These are minor irregularities, and those can be basically excused, but the fact is, it's still in the thought process of making that determination of, again, here's a company that didn't take the time to go through and thoroughly look at this. It's part of the evaluation aspect of things and going, did they give us the best proposal? What was their, scope of things? Again, how did they present it? And usually when you see those kind of errors, you see it trickle down into their response. You see their response, they phoned it in, okay? They didn't really put the effort into it. So again, those are cracks in the fabric of responses.
Yeah, they think you're careless, and then they would think the same thing of your job project.
Exactly, exactly.
Because if you can't fill out the application, you're. out of
Exactly,
luck.
your first foot forward
Yeah.
doesn't look great, so, exactly. So again, we talked about references. Are you required to attach, attachments included, addendas, bid bonds? These things are, again, addendas. These could be a failure point for you, because if it's a critical item that's materially changing the way the solicitation is, during the process, when we advertise this, square peg round hole, all right? We're not always the best in knowing your business line, okay? We get to, sometimes we have our idea of what we think is the perfect fit. But as a business, you look at that and go, that really doesn't line up with our business line, the way we do things. And you can put back in, did you mean this? Or this doesn't necessarily line up with the way we do things. You can make recommendations, you can say, I don't understand this, can you give me a clarification? That's the time to do it. We have an RFI period, request for information period, where you can ask questions. And again, sometimes it may be off kilter from the way you do business, or maybe, something, we just made an adjustment. Someone said, you have 15 years of experience required. Isn't it 10 more reasonable? A lot of companies you may be eliminating from this. We adjusted it back to 10. We reconsidered, and everybody got that response back. So at least they would have 10. So we opened the field a little bit more. They were overshooting a little bit more on the high side of things, and we brought it back to 10. We'll make those adjustments, but you have to acknowledge that you actually saw that. And you also have to, if there's any bid bonds, because that changes the contract, that changes the document. So you have to submit it and initial it just the same. And if you don't, and it's materially changing the document, it could throw you out, because it could have been some, I'm just using the years of experience, but it could be a technical issue that was wrong on our solicitation, and it changed the way you did it. Your price may be affected if you didn't see it, and therefore you could be either bidding higher or you could be bidding lower, and there's no excuses, because everybody had a chance to get that addendum. And then coming back later and saying, I didn't see that, my price is more, that's not the opportunity. So you have to acknowledge that.
Right, because maybe they can do it better than what you described. Not better, but in a different way.
There might be a different way. There might be a different way, and again,
Right, a different way.
like I said, we are the customers a lot of times, and sometimes we use consultants or something, and there might be something of an error, or there might be there, and if you recognize that, you have the right to ask those questions. Or it may be just a general, I don't understand what you're asking me, so, and it might be on everybody's mind, so we provide a clarification for it. But those addendas are important. So when you go through those, make sure you read them, make sure you sign them, and include them with your bid package, okay? And again, bid bonds, when we're asking for that bonding for a reason, and if you don't have that, that's a financial obligation. That means that you basically are showing that you're financially worthy to submit this through your insurance company. If we don't have this, then basically we're gonna throw the bid out. Double check everything before you submit the package. Just go through everything again. I can't say this enough. A lot of times, it makes me sad when I see people that they miss something, and they miss something like this, and they spent a lot of time doing it. And it's unfortunate, because, it could have been corrected. It's a minor detail, and again, it could be a problem. And if it's something like not signing it, it's not minor, it's a major issue. But it's easy enough to miss a signature like that. That's a problem. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to my friends here at SBDC. Let them in. Raj, thank you.
Thank you.
He's coming back, don't worry.
He's coming back. Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Hi,
Good morning.
So Brian hit so many home runs in that presentation that I'm just going to get on base, okay? So a lot of heavy lifting was done in that presentation, so there's a lot of detail there, and what he's done is given you a spectacular class on government contracting in a very short period of time. So the density of that, there's a lot to it. And so we, with the Small Business Development Center, this is what we do every day. So Brian has maybe 1 or 2 or 3 times a year to kind of do a presentation like this. So he was just swinging, just trying to make sure he got every single piece of quality information to you. But our role as a small business development center is to actually work with you. So as you were listening to Brian, did your anxiety kind of pop up a little bit at certain points of the presentation? You're like, how am I going to do that? You need that? How are we going to do that? That's why they actually brought us. Our role is that we are part of a network of consultants across the state, but here in this region to actually support entrepreneurs like yourself. So because the town of Davie is so impressive and so innovative, and in terms of the information they give you is so generous, but they know that the support that they can't give you directly, other than in a meeting like this, they would bring consultants like yourself. So my name is JJ, and my colleague to my left, to your right, is Tony Lassie. And in the back, I'm gonna embarrass Andrea a little bit, she's taking a picture. So that's 3 of our team, and we have all different specializations. And our goal today is, Chad, we wanna encourage you, since you put yourself here and you're online, we wanna encourage you to bid, right? And we wanna encourage your confidence to build, so build that confidence. So we are just a set of small business consultants. You will never have to pay for us, okay? So when you're working with us, we're actually out of FAU, and we're part of 2 programs, the Small Business Development Center and a smaller umbrella organization called PTAC. The acronyms don't matter, we're here to help you, basically. But basically, we're housed at FAU, and we're at each of the campuses as well, so that we're closer to the small business community. Actually, a large part of our team, like our presence, is actually in Broward. And some of our teams in Palm Beach as well, but we have a great presence in Broward, actually very close to you. So, I mean, we do virtual team meetings as well as in person, but since of COVID, we can do a lot of virtual meetings, which is really, advantageous for a lot of pre-entrepreneurs and small business owners and, mid-sized business owners who are, heavy on their. You look like you have a question.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm listening.
You ready? I know.
I can talk a lot, but
No.
I'm gonna just be quiet.
Well, I'm like Brian, I'm interactive as well, so I like to hear. So this is our team, and I don't know if this has a pointer, I think it does. Well, I shouldn't do that to the screen. Okay, so I'm part of this government contracting team, so I'm here to support on the government contracting side, and Andrea's, one of her specializations is startup, so we use her in the startup area, but she's has been an in-market consultant for many years, strong corporate background as well. So we have a lot of all-around people, but we've grouped them in different areas so that our small business community can get their specialties and their expertise. So you get both. You get the all-around business consultant, but you get their special niche as well. And so Andrea just came on the team, has been helping a lot of our pre-entrepreneurs and our new entrepreneurs and our sort of entrepreneurs, find their footing. So. And a lot of people are exploring because the economy has gone in different directions, and Tony is on our capital access team. He has had he won't say how many, but he's had a few years in banking, or a few decades, and he's run branches himself. He's worked with small businesses from every aspect of lending, and he's kind of I call him a weird banker because he likes to actually educate. And he likes to spend time with people and really just give you a lot of time to ask the questions, and even ask the questions you feel like are dumb. He's the kind of guy who would actually not treat any question like they're dumb. He wants you to build your balance sheet and build your revenue in such a way that you leverage your assets properly, okay? So that when you come to Brian and his team, your company is well poised, you've got the liquidity, you got the balance sheet, and you can deploy resources to complete those projects on time and on price and on schedule, okay? And so we've got several specializations there, and we're just built in such a way that since you're working with us, or if you choose to work with us, you can kind of explore. So you have access to any one of these consultants, okay? And so we have entrepreneurs who have worked with us for a long period of time, and they actually have a few companies that they're working with us. So they might actually have a larger company that they've built, and then they start doing demand analysis. They go on Demand Star and like, wow, I see the Town of Davie or the City of Sunrise, and they've got stuff going. Maybe I should I build that product portfolio inside my company, or should I launch another LLC? So we're part of the company formation of South Florida. You just haven't heard of us yet because our conversations are confidential. So when we're interacting with you, like our attorney here, Jose, you know, it's client confidentiality, and we hold that. That's the basis of our program, is so that you can feel safe to just kind of, you know, look at all aspects of your company, and you're not being charged for it. We're paid by your tax dollars, and we're just helping you think. We're helping you brainstorm. We just can't do the work for you.
Right, so if you have one company and you're doing, but you want to expand and maybe do something else.
Yes.
You can help build, but.
So
if
but
you
we're
wanna do
mentors in that
something
process.
new, but if you want, you have an older company and you've shown and proven a record with that company, will you still get a chance starting a new company?
Bring all your children to us.
Oh, so then you would look at that, but then it's a new venture, so
Yes.
you don't have a track record of a new venture. You only have a track
So
record of
I
an
got
old
excited when you
venture.
brought that up, because we
That
would
is-
want you to work with Andrea and our team to kind of work on that new venture.
But, because it would be a new experiment for you
Abs-
and for us.
Well, yes, for you.
But then, right, but then you're experimenting, well, you're giving money.
Well, but we're a
A new
coaching program,
experiment.
right? We're coaching, we're mentoring, we're connecting with other consultants who might be able to give you a little, so if you're on the market, if you got this new venture and you're thinking about what's my marketing strategy, I might put you in front of Jim because he knows how to advertise. You might want to advertise on the front end. That's a lot of money to do on the front end, but you want to kind of push your brand out, right? Or if you want to just think on marketing strategy, I have Jasmine here who's worked with Apple. You know, her corporate background is Apple, so when she looks at your digital properties, your website, your social media, your collateral, like, she's got a lot to say, right? But she's very methodical, and she's not there just to kind of give you information, she's there to guide you, right? This is how we're doing this behind the scenes, because we want our small businesses here in South Florida to look pristine. So when you come to Brian, or you're coming to Next Era Energy, we want you to look great in front. When you attend one of these meetings, we want you to be most poised in the room. But behind the scenes, you're working with us, you're fixing little parts of your business, you're working through your milestones. You got someone to soundboard off of. You got someone to work through your milestones with. You got someone who kind of holds you accountable, right? Because you're doing active meetings with us.
But
And you're not paying a dime for it.
Is social media more important though? I mean, do you see that if you look in social media and see you get a lot more
You're tempting me, I'm not gonna bite. Because
response?
if
than
you
looking back?
meet with us, that would be the kind of question we would talk about.
That would be first, so you would say, oh wow, but you have 50,000 or 1 million followers, and look at everybody, you have 100.
Yeah, so we have
Thousand
we have
likes,
conversations
so
like
maybe
that
we
all
wanna-
we have conversations like that all day where we're looking at the digital brand, your digital properties, and we're
Yeah.
helping you think that through. That makes sense? But so that you get the sense of the composition of the team, the goal is to have this wraparound. And you can see the mindset of the Town of Davie, that they would want to bring on the Small Business Development Center that's housed at FAU, so they're not picking favorites, right? They got to get best, responsible, lowest bidder, right? And best responsive, right? They need someone who's responsive, responsible, and the lowest bidder. So you've got to be that, or your competitor will be that, okay? So that's why you would back into us and work with our team, okay?
But I think social media is becoming more, are you looking into that?
I'm not gonna
more?
bite today. I'm not.
Okay.
But you and I, we're gonna talk, because you're gonna be one of my team members, and if social media is the part of your company you wanna work on, I've got a part of the team.
Oh, they can make that, so.
Can work with you on it.
You need that,
Absolutely.
because that looks better on your resume though.
Yeah, today my
doesn't
goal
it?
is today my goal is just to introduce this to you, because we work with small business behind the scene, and so we don't market ourselves as well as we should, and we appreciate the invitation by the Town of Davie that hey, you guys have some additional support. So they're not ever accused of picking favorites because they've helped one business over another. Do that with us, okay? All right, so I'm only going to do some light because Brian did such heavy lifting, so I'm just going to do a little bit of pieces that you're going to feel for when I talk on government contracting. When you look at DemandStar that Brian mentioned, DemandStar is a great place to actually do demand analysis. So you can just go on DemandStar. It is what I call a third-party portal, right? So there is several hundred agencies that are on Demand Star from across the country. So right there, just one third-party portal has so many relationships with local agencies, whether it's cities, cities, municipalities, and even counties, I think. And you could just use your commodity code, which Brian mentioned, and just kind of look at what deals are out there, what solicitations are out there. And you'd be surprised what government agencies purchase. It's sometimes shocking. This is an example where I won't tell you which agency it is. This is a little bit older one. But this particular agency, because of the services they provide in the community, they actually have to buy hygiene, personal hygiene and grooming equipment. Okay, now I know this agency, so I know the kind of services they provide to the community. And in this case, if you can suss it out, you can probably see that it's probably homeless services, if that makes sense to you. And so they're even buying shoes, right? And so these are large dollar amounts, right? So this is not a city or municipality. This is a larger agency, but their program is very large, right? And this is going to be a spend over several years. $200,000 in shoes is not going to be like a quarterly purchase, right? It's going to be a large. But that agency has a huge homeless crisis, right? So this is how all the point I'm trying to make is you have no idea what the agency is buying until you go in, and I call it your air war and your ground game, right? So Demand Star, using the third-party portals, using the websites to research, that's your air war. You're coming in, you're flying, and you're just looking at the different agencies from their online presence. Ground game is what you guys both are doing here. You're in the city, you're on the property, you know at least 2 officials here at the city, or 3, and you know you're going to know their names by the time you walk out of here. That's part of your ground game in terms of business development, right? You don't have as much time to do ground game, but if you are pursuing public sector opportunities, it can't be all air campaign. It's going to be a little bit of ground game as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, but do Davie residents get first preference?
So I'm going to say that's right after my presentation. It's like the next slide that Brian's going to talk about, so I won't steal his thunder. He's going to talk about the local preference. So I won't answer that one. I'll let him answer that one. So, but good question. Good question. So here's just the Town of Davie's Demand Star. I just grabbed it. So I mean, all of the different solicitations. You know, it's just worth. So if you're a resident of Town of Davie, you should be looking at the solicitations of the Town of Davie on Demand Star, because you get to learn your community from the business side by looking at the solicitations. And I recognize that you live downtown, so you kind of have a feel for the city in terms of the things that are happening. So,
Yes,
so that's actually really good, because now you're paying attention to the agency in the town that you reside in. And it gives you an edge, not just if they give you local preference, but it gives you an edge on being able to build relationships here, as well as you can see things happening. So you can come in and ask questions and figure out what's going on, make public records requests to figure out what's going on, so on and so forth.
I know I came to some of the meetings, but I feel like, I don't want to say it, I shouldn't, but I feel like the Town of Davie is getting overpopulated. But
So I gotta stay on the small business side. So, because I love your questions, but you're gonna pull me in a direction. No, I don't want you to pull. I don't want to say that to you. What I want to say is that I gotta stay on point because I want to make sure we have the information. And so if you're looking at, if you're a resident of Town of Davie, you want to kind of look at if you can provide services to the city, or you can provide services to this region, okay? And think about your cost structure, right? Now, if you're the type of business that can provide services that does not have cost structure in terms of shipping and moving product and moving services, and you can deliver product to, like, I think your daughter is in online shopping, or legal services, you could also provide legal services in certain respects, outside of the region. That's how you want to kind of look at the government agencies. But I always sometimes start with, a small business owner. I say, hey, tell me about the 10-mile radius. What agencies are in your 10 to 15-mile radius, right? Have you talked to them? Have you communicated, okay? I'm not being super detailed because I usually do that in my client sessions, but I'm just trying to open your mind to, if you're thinking about the public sector, your ground game is kind of looking at all of the agencies within the 10-mile radius, right? This also includes Broward County. This also includes waste management, or solid waste authority, and even, your transportation organizations, okay? Brian mentioned this, so I'm gonna re-emphasize this. So a lot of small businesses, they will fire and miss, and then get upset. And I always ask the small business owners that are working with me, I always ask them, hey, okay, always be ready to pivot. Always look at the game. How is the chessboard built? Okay? Who are the bigger players that are actually delivering services to the agencies that you're targeting? How much of the pie do they own? How good is their reputation? Who do you know who's at the prime contractor? Have you interacted with the prime contractor? And it doesn't have to be just construction that's a prime, right? It can be any direct bidder that has won that contract, and they've got a great relationship, and their company has grown so that they can sub work out too on that particular contract. And so this is where, if you are taking a look at the agency, you need to know what companies are already satelliting around that agency. So who are your competitors and who are your large competitors? And what kind of conversations do you need to have? So you cannot, in business, always think it's my business and the target customer or the target prospect. You gotta look at the whole game. You gotta look at the whole chessboard. And that's kind of what we do with the PTech side, as well as my small business development colleagues, because we want you to kind of see what's going on. The best way to do this, government contracting is the perfect place to do this, because you can make public records requests and see who won prior contracts that you want to pursue in the future. So then you look at those contract deadlines and you look it out and say, okay, we'll compete on the next one. But this is how they price it. Here's who won it, who's been competing for it. I tell you this because your competitors are already doing this.
Also, it tells you how much they won the bid, and does it tell you why?
Well, I will say that you can make public records requests of the agency, and you can ask for award tabulations. Some agencies might even give you the winning proposal, some may not. It's really dependent, right? The way public records requests work generally is, if you know what document you're looking for, that you can request that document. That's kind of how that works. I'll go into detail if we were to do a private session. We'd go into a little bit more
Well,
detail.
doesn't the town have to show who won the bid or not?
Yes, so the award tabulation is one of those document requests you can make, okay? It's a sensitive subject, so I don't want to go into it here, but I usually do that privately because I usually upset my municipal partners when I talk about.
I'll cover some of it.
Okay, yeah, well, the last municipal partner gave me a little slap on the wrist the last time I talked about public records requests, 'cause they don't want to get all those requests, so. But anyways, but my point is, understand the aquarium, okay? So, all right, this is gonna be the last few pieces of this. What I've done is kind of overview. So Brian really gave you an excellent sense of the orientation of how the town of Davie does business, okay? And he was extremely generous. I don't know many procurement directors who would do a presentation like this. I interact with quite a number. I just did a presentation with a county agency, excellent leader there, but this is rare. You have extremely great leadership here, both on the procurement side and then with Leona. We have had a fabulous relationship with this town. I think you're in a when I say innovative, it might sound like the visiting pastor, like flattering the founding pastor, and I am doing a little bit of that. But that being said, you've got a very special town. I rarely see a detailed presentation on government contracting. I love following Brian because I literally enjoy just listening to him just explain these things. And then I usually, when I have a Town of Davie small business, I'm like, okay, we gotta look at Brian's presentation because this is what you need to know about that town. So, but the ugly secret of doing government contracting is that you have to hone in, okay? You've got to look at your target. As a business owner, you're the predator. The agency is your target, and you've got to really understand the agency. And small businesses fire and miss, fire and miss, fire and miss, get upset, and they don't really think through that, hey, you're the one who's trying to get the date. Okay? So if she doesn't want to date you, why are you upset? You got to come with your A game.
But do you get to see the other bidders? Could they be a better not a better company, A bigger company?
So with DemandStar as an example, a third-party portal, they actually will show you who they'll call it plan holders. So
Right.
you can see who's actually,
Bidding.
who's looking at the
Oh.
solicitation, okay? And if you do the subscription with DemandStar, you actually could get their contact information, and you could actually contact the other bidders to see if you want to team with them, okay? I won't give you a little bit too much more of the detail, but then in the post, you could do a public records request to see who won it as well, okay? So there are different ways to cut this up, but the goal here is study your target. Brian gave you so many aspects of how the procurement department here operates. There's a lot of little details, not just what he said, but the poise by which he communicated. And so you can tell if you're gonna come to the town of Davie, there's a certain culture here. And that's what you're studying. You're studying the culture of each agency. I sometimes say you study the soap opera as well, you know, but that's part of it, right? So you have to kind of look at government contracting just as fun as going after private customers, okay? And so we enjoy the Small Business Development Center, working with our companies, having them acquire customers, private customers and public customers. That's our role, and I'm so grateful to be here with my colleagues, here with Brian and Leona, and the procurement team. You've done a great job by just coming here, just learning, right? And they've made this a safe space for you to learn. In other meetings, you've got to come poised, right? But here, they're letting small businesses learn, and you did a good job by just kind of asking good questions today. This is how you register with us. So
It's not working, is it?
No, well, right now it's telling me that you are a privacy risk.
oh, okay. Well,
From your
this is our
Yeah.
The phone is saying that.
Yeah.
but this is our email here.
It's not private.
So if you
I got
just
it.
email this, you can register. Our
You
colleague
go to the website there.
goes direct. It doesn't go to a robot. It goes to an actual person, and she assigns you directly to.
Okay.
There's like a small little,
Just
registration.
letting you know.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm trying to-
I'll have to change it.
Yeah, there's a profile you have to complete.
So, or maybe you're in trouble. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Well, thank you so much, and I want to turn it back over to Brian. Thank you again. My compliments are sincere. You're very generous with the information you give, and I hope this leads you on a path toward either the town of Davie or other public procurement. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Now I'm gonna have to follow that. Actually, great job. And again, they compliment us on this. It's one of the things that it is a great team part, because everything I'm teaching you today, as far as from the town of Davie side, again, they get the support for the backside, like he was saying, that can show you how to better respond, how to do those things. And sometimes, like I said, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of terms and conditions, there's a lot of legal stuff in there. You might not be so hard, well, right, but there's a lot of terms and conditions, 32 pages of it, and sometimes it's daunting. It's one of those things that you look at and you go, how am I gonna respond to this? I can read what they need, but there's other things and obligations that are in there that can be scary. So again, that's what they walk you through. They show you all the forms. Some of those things I hit on, that toolbox and those things and how to be prepared for those things, they back that up. They actually show you those key elements. And that's somebody that can hold your hand through that process. Like you said, you're gonna do it, but you can hold your hand along the way. So it's a great synergy between the two of us, okay? And I use that word very little because it's so been overused, but there is a great synergy between us as far as that complementing us to be able to do, we're looking for these responses, but they're teaching you to actually how to do that correctly. So you don't experience that heartbreak of failure from not doing those pieces of those forms and other things. That's the hardest part. Sometimes just to get through that, to get in the game, to actually be able to do that, then it's all on you as far as your salesmanship, your pricing, or anything like that. But the other parts are sometimes that extra paperwork going through that. So kudos to you guys, great presentation. Again, so local preference, you asked this question because that was one of the things. So we do have a local preference ordinance, and we have one for the town of Davie, and then we have one for Broward County. So again, for Davie, when we look at if the lowest bidder is not a town of Davie bidder, okay? If you're like, for example, you're number 2, and we have a low bidder that's number 1. you have the opportunity from what we call a BAFO, a best and final offer. We'll send you a document that says, you know, this is the lowest bidder we received, you're a local vendor, you have the opportunity to provide a second bid, and it has to be below 1% of the lowest bidder. Now, your margins may be so low that you can't beat that. We understand that, but we give you the opportunity, and you have to come in 1% lower than them. If you can do that, you have that second piece, or second bite at the apple, I would say, to be able to do that. Same thing with Broward County. If there's a Broward County, and someone's there that is not Broward County or not local Davie, just the same, there's some variations of these that come in, but at 2.5%, okay? So they have a lower margin, so they have to be between that. So Davie gets the bigger, that's the two, and then Broward County has the lesser of the two. But we look at both of them. So this was designed by the council many years ago before I got here. I think it's a great opportunity. It's fair for the vendor, and it's fair for the agent, the governmental taxpayers just the same, because we're asking for at least 1% lower. All right?
Wait, you have to be a resident, not a business owner, right? So you have to also live
No,
there.
you have to be a local business owner.
Oh, just a business, so you could
Yeah,
live
you
outside.
can't be just a resident and basically have one in Pompano Beach, a business in Pompano Beach. You're not a local vendor. You have to have here a BTR within the town, doing business, brick and mortar, whatever. You have to have a business license here in the town, at least for 1 year, okay? So there is an ordinance on it, you can read it. It's, again, but this is just something we wanna make sure that you understand, that we do give those opportunities for local vendors, so that we take that into consideration. Now, that's for bids, because those are numbers. Those are when we're looking at numbers. When we get into RFPs, it's a little bit different. We look in as a consideration. We look the fact that if you're a local vendor here, we're gonna give you more consideration from that aspect to say, you're here in the town, you're local, when we're doing an overall review of that process. Same thing with Broward County, because again, local here in the town, and again, from the county, we asked the review committee as one of our evaluation criteria, local preference, okay? Everybody understand that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's great.
It is, I think that, again, our ordinance for local vendors, I've seen ones that, you know, they give, if you're 5%, you could be higher, and again, it comes back on the taxpayer just the same. So I think it's a good balance. All right, anybody familiar with this term, piggybacking? Nope, okay. So piggybacking this is actually a way that helps supplement the way we do solicitations. And what I mean by that is the fact that we have the ability, for example, the city of Fort Lauderdale puts out a solicitation, and you've been awarded from the city of Fort Lauderdale for your services. We have the ability to go to you as a contractor and say, you have a contract with the city of Fort Lauderdale to provide these services. We want the same services. We want to utilize those terms and conditions of that contract as our own. So we take that contract now, we give you what we call a piggyback contract that you bind to us that says, we're gonna follow the terms and conditions of City of Fort Lauderdale, just as you did with them, you're gonna provide that contract to us. Now it becomes a Town of Davie contract for us, okay? So it's everything, the terms and conditions that match there, we have a little bit different as far as changing the name, changing the venue, as far as any of the laws or anything like that if we did something from up the state, but it'd be Broward County. But again, it doesn't affect the ability for us to do this. So again, I use Fort Lauderdale example, but we can do it pretty much anywhere to Nome, Alaska. All right, so it's one of those things that we can contract. If we have another contract that's a local government or municipal contract, or even GSA, or anything of that nature, we can piggyback off of those. Utilizing that contract, same terms and conditions. We have some modifiers that we use, again, to bring them back to Davie's venue. We're not gonna send our attorneys off to Nome, Alaska to basically, they're not bar certified there. So, you know, we have to have, you know, jurisdiction here. So there's other things that we do bring into that contract, but we want the same business rules, terms and conditions, and things of that nature. Okay?
So, are you saying that for piggybacking purposes, I mean, I'm reading this, but those are not gonna go out for bid?
Yes.
You're just gonna look at the contract and say, I like those, let's just go and get those terms?
Yes.
Okay.
And we can do that. We do that for areas like our fleet vehicles. We piggyback off of the Florida Sheriff's Agreement, or we use a national cooperative, which I'll talk about in a second, through when we buy our vehicles. We don't bid out to the local dealerships because they don't have fleet services. We get cars for almost cost a lot of times, you know, and you don't see that when you go to a dealership. They're gonna have to take all these extra costs. So a lot of times these agencies like the Florida Sheriff's Department, which is a bigger organization, we all utilize those contracts, so we get cars at very, very low prices. And we pay for the accessories and things like that, but we would not be able to be buying from dealerships at that low a cost. So again, it's the volume aspect of how many people are utilizing those contracts that give us the ability to use those. So we look at those. Is it better for us to utilize a contract that is larger than us? We wouldn't want to piggyback a contract, and no offense to like City of Florida by the Sea, for water supplies when we have, you know, a large water plant and they have a small water plant. Their prices are probably going to be higher because they're basically, their volume is low. You know, quantity builds that cost up. So again, we want to piggyback off a contract that has the best value for us. So we do analysis on it. We do review it. We don't just say, hey, it's easy to do. If the costs are good and everything matches up, then we'll actually, instead of foregoing a solicitation process, it's already been solicited. It's gone through that. It's just been done by another agency. So now we copy that and we call it piggybacking. So we're just piggybacking on it. It's turning that contract into the Town of Davie contract. Okay?
Do you also do, so not favoritism, but women and minority?
We do not have MWE. No. We do, I shouldn't say that, I'm gonna back that up. We don't do it for town general governmental purchases, but when we have grants and we have other funding sources, they have requirements in there and we do have those. So the answer is when it's required by the funding agency, then we do it. We don't do it if it's not required, okay? So again, we get into cooperatives. Now cooperatives are a little bit differently. They're different. Piggybacking is like the Town of Davie here. We piggyback out, or we bid out, for example, guns and ammo, okay? We take into consideration only ourselves. We're really looking at what the town needs. And same thing with City of Fort Lauderdale. If they're bidding something, we can copy that, replicate that. Just because they did it, we can do it too with that contract. Cooperatives a little bit differently. Cooperative takes in mind a volume group pricing. They look at a whole list of agencies that are going to utilize this contract. They're crushing down that pricing by volume of all the agency members or the cooperative members. So then again, we have a local here that's 52 agencies across Broward, the Tri-County area. We do here what's called a cooperative of all the agencies. We meet monthly to discuss contracts with other agencies like Sunrise, Fort Lauderdale, all the way down to Miami, all the way up to Palm Beach. We meet with those agencies on a monthly basis and talk about what contracting opportunities can we pool our resources together to make a contract with high volume to bring down those prices. And we utilize those. So we're working in conjunction with each other to have good contracts, bringing lower prices down for each other. Everybody understand that?
Like buying by hot volume?
Buying by high volume bulk, okay? Yep, using other agencies, the same requirements. We have things for like what we call like salt, when we do for water softening, or we do for water chlorine, you know, with the salt generator type stuff. We have that for water processing. We have chemicals. We all use the same type of chemicals for water. There's a lot of things that we use that are the same in other municipalities. Porta-johns, road barriers, different things like that. Asphalt, different things that we all use that we can take into account by high volume to get lower pricing. Okay? So that's looking at it as a bulk, whereas the piggyback, that agency never knew that you were going to use that contract, and they basically sometimes don't even know you're using that contract. It was just, we have the ability to use that contract as an ability to, since it was competitively processed, we can use it too. Okay, everybody understand that? Okay. All right, just some of the fundamentals of our, the way we do procurement. We look at the best value through procurement, or through the competitive process. Again, we look at what is the best value? Is it going to be piggybacking? Is it going to be cooperative? Is it going to be a solicitation? And what type of solicitation we're gonna use? We work with departments on that to get the best method, working with the departments on this. If it's gonna be a bid, or if it's gonna be an RFP, we wanna make sure that how we spend our dollars and we get the best return for those solicitations. We make sure that we're fair and equitable for our contracting opportunities for our vendors. You asked about public records, okay? That was one of the things coming back to. If you look at our website, we talk about transparency, we talk about what's available. We put so much content out there. We put the bids, we put the responses, we put the tabulations, we put all that information out there for the reason that you can see that once it's been awarded. So that you can do that research to say, hey, you know, I didn't get that bid, but I'm gonna go look at that documentation to see where I went wrong. Maybe kind of do a debriefing on yourself to say, maybe I didn't get that pricing because, you know, this is where they're at. It may be surreal for you to go, wow, I was at the top. Maybe I need to look at what I'm doing as far as, you know, what is it that I can readjust? And that's where these gentlemen can help out too. Again, they can show that comparative, they can look at that data and say, what are those costs? Why are you so off from here, or why is this? Again, that's not us, that's for you to determine with them and how your business strategy is, but you have that data available to you. We make it available, as they said, but by Florida statute, under 119, you have the right to ask for that information. Okay, it's Freedom of Information Act, it's the Sunshine Law. There are things that are precluded. If it's proprietary, if there's certain things that are security risks, there are some things that are exempt from that aspect. But if you ask for it, you go to the clerk's office of any of the agencies or ask for it, they're gonna let you know. You don't have to be the expert on sunshine law. You can ask for it, and they'll come back and tell you, well, that's, you know, precluded under 119, or if this is, you know, we ask them, and nobody can just throw out an exemption for things. Oops. One for their exemptions. We actually have to have them point to that documentation and tell us why that qualifies under that, why that qualifies as far as under 119. You know, if it's trade secrets or if it's something like that, then yeah, we're not going to pass that out. It's a liability on the town, and again, it's covered under the Florida statute. But you have the right to ask for that information. We provide it to you. We give you everything that you basically have, because I don't have the staff to keep churning this information out. I want it to be the most transparent process. I believe in the fact that if there is something we did wrong, and you say, oh, wait a minute, this isn't right, you have the opportunity also, when we post an award, to go through that, and if there was something wrong, or we did something wrong, and it is not sour grapes. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, just because, hey, we're the best and we're better than them, that might not cut it. But if there's something legally, or something that basically is off, you have the right to protest. You have the right to basically question that. And that's within your rights, and it's in the solicitation and defined in the document on how you do that. Like I said, you can't just throw things out there and say, well, we're better than them. You have to follow the script on what that process is. But again, that documentation is available for you, so you can make sure you got a fair shake at this process.
Oh, so also you would see why they won, and then you could say, well, in detail, I could do something better, not better.
No,
not better.
you're not gonna do that. If there's a calculation error, or if there's something that was missed, or if there's something that was wrong in the process,
Oh, wrong
that was
process.
fundamentally wrong, not, it was a legal issue, not that, hey, I can do this better, because
Oh,
that's not what we're gonna
that's not
entertain.
right.
We're not gonna get into that discussion, because
Okay.
you can do that all day long,
Right.
and we're not gonna get that.
Oh,
You know, we
I
made a
see.
recommendation based on what's best interest of the town, but if there is a fundamental error in the issue, if there's something, again, that comes from legally, or if it's unethical, or it's one of those things
Oh,
that
okay.
come to play, you have the right to basically challenge that. But again, you have to look at the document, you have to read the guidelines, you have to go through that information. And again, these guys can help you with that process too. If you're saying, man, this doesn't seem right, it's just, reach out to them, you know, maybe they can give you shed some light on it and say, you know, well, this is what they're thinking, or this is what they're saying, maybe they can give you some rationale behind it, just to say. Yeah, so again, and they can do that, so that, you know, they can answer your question, give you that settled feeling of, well, maybe this time you didn't get it, maybe this is what you need to do next time. Or, yeah, this doesn't look right, let's look further into it. So again, that's the beauty of their services, just the same. We can't tell you that, we're not gonna guide you through how to protest with us.
Right.
You know, I'm just saying, but again, there's somebody else that you can reach out to that can give you that kind of sounding board, like you talked about it. We're a sounding board for some of those things. So again, we can't help you in that aspect, they can.
Do you
Yeah.
think there's a little favoritism in some contracts, or no? Everything is looked at,
So those are the kinds of conversations
okay,
we
we won't
have,
have that.
you know, privately, how that plays out.
Again, we look at things from most responsive, responsible bidders. Favoritism, that doesn't come into my world, okay?
That's right.
Favoritism is not part of what I look at or I expect from this agency whatsoever. I look at what is best value for the town,
Right.
best overall solution, or lowest responsive, responsible bidder. Favoritism doesn't come into play. It's tax dollars that I take very personally because, again, there's reasons for that. And I treat every agency that I've ever worked at as it's my own tax money.
God bless you for that.
So, again, qualified vendors, you know, we make sure that we have qualified vendors. We talked about that earlier, right? I wanna make sure that we're utilizing qualified vendors. One of the things that we're moving forward to in our vendor registration process within the next, hopefully, week or two, is we are using what's called Payment Works. There's a service that you'll be registering online from a vendor standpoint, and they do a lot of analysis on your information of what's being submitted. All of our documents and everything, to make sure that we are dealing with companies that are legitimate, that have all the documentation, that have, you know, all the proper documentation.
Interesting.
They're not disbarred. They're not basically violating any of the Florida statutes on discrimination, any of those things that basically come into play. It's done electronically. It comes to us. With that, it also allows you to register for ACH payments, so that basically you don't have to pay a P-card charge, you won't get a check, it'll just directly go to your bank. So basically, and it's safe, secure method of way to do this.
Excellent.
Okay, that is what we're providing, because there is a trend out there where people are ripping people off using ACH numbers and things of that nature. We wanted to secure the town as paying that process. We have for checks, it's called positive pay. The bank reviews it, there's a whole process that goes through that. Now we have something in place for ACH payments as well to secure the method of your getting that money for those services, okay?
Love that. So that means
Again.
your payment timeline improves with contracts?
Yes, absolutely. Again, payment increases as far as getting your money quickly and efficiently. Public confidence, we make sure that, again, we're instilling the public confidence. You're Town of Davie resident, you said, again, you're here, understanding that basically we're spending your money in the most efficient, effective, transparent method. And I hope that basically you have a better understanding of that today and how we take that very seriously. It's not something that we sit there and go, well, we're just gonna buy it because we need it. It's one of those things that we look at the process to make sure that we're utilizing those dollars in the best manner. Improve ethical conduct. Again, that's one of the things that we want to ensure. We teach ethics to all of our council. We teach ethics to all of our departments. We make sure that they have an understanding. We brought in this year the Broward County OIG, and they did a training with all of our end users and talking about how to do business, make sure that we're following those core ethical values. They gave examples of where things went wrong, where things we should be looking at invoices to make sure the pricing is correct, everything matches. We went through an hour-and-a-half presentation with them. They did a great job. And again, they partnered with us, and that's what we want, because we don't want to be in the newspaper. We don't want to be there. We want to be able to be audited and feel very comfortable in sleeping at night, not knowing that we're going to show up in the paper and you as a resident going, here's another governmental entity just wasting money. And that's not where this town wants to be. This town wants to be stellar. We've won awards, and several awards for this process that we put in place. And we're gonna continue to do that using best practices, okay? And again, maximum disclosure, benefit to the public, same thing. It's one of those things. So, what do you have for me as questions? Because I think that I've talked a lot.
No, you do not talk a lot. You give really good information.
Well, Leona knows I talk a lot anyway in general. That's one of the things that,
This is
Oh, so you're in
good.
charge of you're in charge of all
the procurement, yes.
Oh, okay.
So basically, I'm the procurement manager. I handle, like I said, all of it. My team, we cover Band-Aids to buildings, and that's kind of my go-to line.
Oh,
As
how
far
long
as-
have you been in Davie?
How long? I've been here 7 going on 8 years,
Oh,
so,
wow.
Congratulations.
so.
It's grown
Again,
a lot, right?
what's that?
It's grown a lot.
It's grown, it has, and it, you know, as we grow, our needs increase, and our departments increase in what we do. And so that takes more and more for us to keep our eyes open and learn more. And one of the things that in my department, in the town, has been, as far as our administration and everything, is a firm believer in education. From an education standpoint of educating you as suppliers, vendors, contractors, to educating us to stay current in our best practices. And they have a strong will to make sure that we do that. And that's what is important for us, is that we are up to date on our training. We have all certifications, we have, you know, all of our background, and we make sure that we're staying current on looking at best practices, looking at law changes, making sure that we're following those rules and regulations, updating our policies and procedures to stay out of being stagnant. And that's what this organization is about. And our administration is very adamant about making sure that we do that. And we have their full support from that aspect of things. And we, again, support what they want. So, great place to work, great place to live. You know, Town of Davie is, like I said, it is definitely one of the places, the best places I've ever worked for. So,
I have 4 questions.
sure.
So first one, signatures on bids and everything else, and initials, you take electronic signatures, those are all good?
Yep.
Electronic signatures?
Yep, and that's been passed under Florida statute.
Some people like to, you know, just type in their name and just assume.
And, you know, we do the most efficient way, and electronic signatures work.
That address, is this the one right down there by the, still good?
Which one?
The town hall?
Yeah.
No, the town hall, is that that's not the one by Orange, right? The one that was destroyed?
No, that's the one across.
Actually, this is the newest one.
This is here?
Yep,
Okay, because the other address had the orange drive on.
6591? Yeah.
So, no.
Yeah,
the
we're
other-
here,
the other
we're
slide-
here for about 3 years, 4 more years, maybe 5, but, you know, depends. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I don't,
That's
I don't,
really a nice place down
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that was my other question, because my wife asked me this morning, are they gonna build the town hall
Yes.
back in the same
Yes,
spot?
same spot.
I'm like, yeah, well, that was the plan, I
Right.
remember that was the plan.
It is a
the
plan.
plan. Yeah.
It is
Oh,
a
I thought
plan.
you went to the corner.
No, that corner's been bought by a developer, but that's a different story. But we're gonna be back where we were at.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that is a perfect example of a subcontracting process. You know, those contractors, we're gonna do what's called a design build. So that design build is, we're gonna go out through a process to solicit for contractors or engineers. They both have the opportunity to come in and present a design build. So we already have the core items of what we want, what we have, what's called a conceptual design. And we give that to these contractors, and then they have to expand on that, and then they have to give us what's called a maximum value, or guaranteed maximum price. And they give us that price, and we negotiate that GPM, all right? So that is what they have to do to build, to work with. And they're gonna need subs for a lot of things. You know, we're talking furniture, they can't do all of those services. They gotta do conduit, cable, all that stuff. So again, they're gonna need a ton of subs to build this project. It's $34 million project probably. You know, that's not something that a general contractor can do by themselves, or an architect or an engineer can do by themselves. They have to have a lot of pieces
Oh,
to
for
that
the new
puzzle.
town hall?
Yes. So.
Well, you can have the atrium and all that, right?
Yep,
Still gonna be
Yep,
there?
so again, they have it online, a lot of the conceptual aspects of things like that. But again, that's a big project that's coming down the pipeline very soon. And there's a lot of moving pieces to it that we talk about those little fish following the big fish, right? We saw that on his presentation. You could be those little fish that are gonna be working with that big fish.
Can I ask you a bad question?
Sure.
What are you putting on that corner, another four or five story building?
I'm not gonna get into this concept of that. That's not really part of today, but thank you.
Okay, sorry, I don't want to.
Any other questions?
Oh no, the only, it's for the one slide where you have the email check where you can sign up for the alerts from the Town of
Right.
Davie itself. Is that the link at the bottom? That's the link. It's not on this slide, but it was on that one slide where the
The
email
notification,
for the notifications where you can sign up for it. Was that the link at the bottom?
that's demand stuff.
One was Demand Star, but there's also,
No, not the
right, the davie-fl.gov.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, so basically, if you go to, take this off from davie-fl.gov, www,
Right.
and then basically you can get Dave, that will have the main page,
Okay.
and then you can basically find out, Notify Me bubble, it's the one in the middle.
Okay, that's.
There's like 5 of them,
Yeah.
and it's the one in the middle.
Are you showing when we're done on the computer?
Yes, Leona can show you.
So you have bids all year long, every month almost, or?
Yeah, we do about 120, 130 bids a year, and then we also supplement through piggybacks, cooperatives, contracts. And if you actually have been awarded one, if you've ever been awarded a solicitation, we tell people, bring that as when you're going to talk to any procurement agent or any agency, here, use this as your flag to say, that's an opening discussion. I have a contract with the Town of Davie, I have a contract with this. And again, we can utilize that if it's the same services, we can look at that from a piggybacking standpoint. That might be we need it right away, and it's one of those things that we might be able to utilize right tomorrow, instead of going through that whole competitive bid process. So if you've been awarded through that process, like for example, you talked about online purchasing and stuff like that. We have contracts out there for specialty items like awards or knickknacks, little things that we do at trade shows. Some of the things that, these kind of things, we do some of that purchasing as well for, whatever it is. Right now, I think we're going into a contract with 2 companies based on a percentage, cost percentage, but we do those types of services, so it's like awards or something like that.
So if I could buy it cheaper and then sell it to you at the lowest bid, I could still win a bid.
Correct. But again, it's the same thing, that's what,
But are you gonna be online searching too, or are you just gonna be looking at bidders?
we could be doing both.
Oh,
We're looking for the best price. We're gonna be looking for the best value. It's not, even if we have a contract, 9 out of 10 times, our contracts our departments are going to use, because it's the method of which we do. We have contract right now with Amazon. A lot of things that basically we purchase, we buy from Amazon just the same. So, if it's something that is water bottles or something like that that are buying for an event or something like that, they're gonna buy them on Amazon, or they're gonna look for basically the best price. Amazon's not always the best price. We tell them to shop compare to see which ones we have, but we have a contract for Amazon. But it doesn't mean it's the best price.
cause they deliver, yeah, they're really, those guys.
It's great value. There's a
Yes.
great value to it, and I'm not gonna promote them on, as part of, but there's a great value aspect of it. But there is also other methods we can, and locally here we look to sourcing, because why? We have the ability to go get it, So, this is my presentation. I hope you've enjoyed this.
Thank you very
It's been
much.
a great presentation from you gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Okay,
If you have any questions, you can talk to me afterward again, or you can call us and reach out to us. All right? Thank you very much.
I look forward to all the new buildings going up. Well, I want to see the new town hall.